A single mom pays $50 to hire a fake boyfriend for Christmas, unaware he is a rich man. The laughter felt sharper than it should have, cutting through the glow of Christmas lights like broken glass. Laura Bennett stood just inside the doorway of her aunt's house, her coat still on, her hands clenched around the strap of her worn purse. The warmth inside didn't comfort her. It pressed in on her, thick with perfume, roasted meat, and judgment disguised as holiday cheer. She hadn't even taken 3 steps before the questions started. "So, Laura," someone said, smiling too brightly, "are you still working there?" There meant the grocery store. The place everyone in the family pretended not to remember the name of. Laura forced a polite smile and nodded. "Yes, still there." Another voice followed quickly. "And the nights?" "Still cleaning offices." The smile tightened. "Yes." Pause. Then a soft, disappointed sound, like sympathy but sharper. Not for her. For themselves, for having to witness her life up close. Laura felt it again, that familiar sensation of being an exhibit rather than a person. A cautionary tale wrapped in a Christmas sweater. She spotted the tree immediately. It dominated the living room, tall and flawless, every ornament perfectly spaced. Her Aunt Evelyn took pride in that tree. 40 years of collecting. 40 years of tradition. 40 years of reminding everyone else what stability looked like. Laura had none of that. She was 32 years old, divorced, living in the converted room above the garage, and raising her 8-year-old son alone. Tonight, she dropped Noah off at a classmate's house, pretending it was fun, pretending she wasn't relieved he wouldn't be here to hear what the family said about her when they thought she wasn't listening. Family helps family, Aunt Evelyn had said 8 months ago, offering the room after Laura lost her apartment. What she hadn't said, but had made very clear, was that help came with observation. Laura cleaned the house twice a week. Ran errands. Smiled through dinners like this. Accepted advice she didn't ask for and criticism she didn't deserve. Rent was free. Dignity was not. The living room filled quickly. Married cousins. Successful siblings. People who spoke in bonuses and promotions and vacations. People who used phrases like real career and long-term planning. Laura tried to stay near the kitchen, offering to help, but Aunt Evelyn guided her firmly toward the sofa, placing her between 2 relatives like she was being positioned for judgment. The interrogation began gently. "How's Noah doing in school?" "Good," Laura said. "He's reading above grade level." "That's nice," someone replied. "But boys need strong male role models." Another voice chimed in. "You know, kids feel instability, even when you think they don't." Laura nodded. She always nodded. Then came the question she'd been dreading. "So, are you seeing anyone?" The room leaned in. Laura swallowed. "No." Uncle Martin leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Laura, you can't do everything alone forever." "I'm managing," she said quietly. A chuckle followed. "Not cruel. Worse. Casual. Comfortable." "Managing isn't thriving," her cousin Rebecca said. "And children deserve more than just managing." Something cracked inside Laura's chest. Not loudly. Just enough to make breathing hurt. She thought of Noah's laugh. The way he hugged her legs in the morning. The lunches she packed at dawn before her shifts. The extra hours she took scrubbing floors while he slept at home. She thought of the $12.84 left in her checking account. She thought of the $50 bill folded in her coat pocket. Money she'd saved by skipping meals and walking instead of driving. And then her aunt said it. "Maybe if you'd made better choices, you wouldn't be struggling like this." The room went quiet. Not uncomfortable quiet. Agreeing quiet. Laura stood up before she realized she was doing it. "I need some air," she said, already moving. No one stopped her. Outside, the cold hit her like mercy. The night was silent, the driveway lit by soft white bulbs strung along the fence. Laura inhaled deeply, pressing her hand to her chest, trying to steady the shaking. That was when she saw him. He stood near the gate, hands in his pockets, breath fogging in the air. He didn't look lost. He didn't look important. Just present. Dark coat. Jeans. Calm posture. Someone waiting. Or thinking. Laura didn't plan it. She walked toward him, pulled the folded bill from her pocket and held it out. "I need a favor," she said. He looked at the money. Then at her. "Pretend you're my boyfriend," she said. "Just for tonight." Her voice trembled. Not from the cold. He studied her face, not the money, for a long moment. Then he took the bill, folded it once and slipped it into his pocket. "Okay," he said. "What's your name?" "Laura." "I'm Daniel," he replied. They walked back toward the house together, and Laura felt the absurdity of it crash over her, but she didn't stop, because humiliation was already waiting inside. At least this way she wouldn't face it alone. When she opened the door, every conversation stopped. Aunt Evelyn stood up slowly. "Laura," she said. "Who is this?" Laura straightened her shoulders. "This is Daniel. My boyfriend." The word felt strange. Dangerous. Hopeful. Questions exploded instantly. Where did they meet? What did he do? Why hadn't she mentioned him? How long had this been going on? Daniel answered calmly. Simply. He didn't over-explain. He didn't brag. He said they met while she was helping him at the store. That she was kind. That he liked her. Someone laughed. "A grocery store romance," Rebecca said. "How fitting." Laura's face burned. Then Daniel spoke again. "Laura works harder than anyone I know," he said evenly. "She takes care of her child without complaint. She shows up. She matters." The room went silent. No one had ever said that out loud before. Dinner followed, stiff and uncomfortable. Questions continued, about money, housing, future plans. Laura shrank with each one, until the television came on. A news anchor spoke about business growth and record profits. A photo appeared on the screen. Daniel's face, only sharper, more powerful, framed by glass towers and headlines. The name beneath it read, Daniel Wright, CEO Wright Global Holdings. The room froze. Laura's breath caught, and everything changed. The truth changes the room, but not the heart. No one spoke at first. The television continued murmuring in the background, stock numbers scrolling beneath Daniel's image like nothing extraordinary had just happened. Laura stared at the screen, then at the man sitting beside her, trying to reconcile the quiet presence she'd hired for $50 with the powerful executive now frozen in pixels. Aunt Evelyn was the first to move. Her chair scraped loudly as she stood, one hand pressed to her chest. "Daniel," she said, her voice suddenly bright, almost breathless, "why didn't you say something?" Daniel didn't look up. His gaze remained fixed on the table, on the half-eaten plate in front of him. "No one asked the right questions," he replied calmly. Uncle Martin let out a stunned laugh, shaking his head. "Wright Global," he said. "Of course. I should have recognized the name." He leaned forward, his tone shifting instantly. "You know, I follow the markets closely. Impressive growth this year." Moments ago, that same man had questioned Laura's ability to raise her son alone. Rebecca reached across the table, smiling wide enough to hurt. "Laura, you never told us you were seeing someone so accomplished." Laura felt something cold settle in her stomach. She looked around the table, at the faces that had been so certain of her failure, now glowing with interest and approval. Nothing about her had changed. Not her job. Not her bank balance. Not the room above the garage. Yet suddenly she mattered, because of who sat beside her. "It didn't seem relevant," Laura said quietly. Dinner resumed, but it was no longer an interrogation. It was a performance. Questions turned strategic. Compliments flowed freely. Plans were suggested. Uncle Martin talked about lunch meetings. Rebecca hinted at investment opportunities. Aunt Evelyn insisted Daniel try dessert, personally serving him a slice of pie like an offering. Laura barely touched her food. The noise felt unreal, like she was watching a scene meant for someone else. She glanced at Daniel, hoping to find reassurance, but his expression was unreadable. "Come. Close." Finally he stood. The movement cut through the chatter instantly. "We're leaving," Daniel said. Aunt Evelyn gasped. "Leaving? But dessert." "I think we've had enough," he replied, already turning to Laura. He held out his hand. She hesitated for half a second, then took it. As they walked toward the door, voices followed, protests, apologies, explanations dressed as concern. Aunt Evelyn caught up to them at the entryway, her smile strained. "Laura, don't be dramatic. We were just worried about you." Laura didn't respond. Outside, the night air felt different now. Not comforting, clarifying. Daniel opened the passenger door of a sleek black sedan parked along the curb. Laura hadn't noticed it before. She slid in, hands trembling in her lap. The drive was silent. Streetlights blurred past as Laura stared out the window, her mind replaying the night in fragments. The way the room changed. The way kindness arrived only after status was revealed. The way it all made her feel smaller instead of proud. They left the city behind, the road stretching darker, emptier. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. "Somewhere quiet," Daniel said. They stopped at a beach overlook, deserted at this hour. The ocean stretched endlessly ahead, waves breaking in steady rhythm. The wind was sharp, salty. They stood side by side, neither speaking. "I didn't know," Laura said eventually. "About you." "I know," he replied. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For dragging you into that. For the questions. For the money." Her voice cracked. "I shouldn't have." Daniel turned to her. "You didn't do anything wrong." She laughed bitterly. "I paid you to pretend to care." He shook his head. "You paid me to show up. The rest was real." Laura hugged her coat tighter. "They didn't see me. Not once. Until you." Daniel's voice softened. "I saw you before that." She looked at him, then really looked at him, and for the first time wondered why someone like him had said yes so easily. "Why did you agree?" she asked. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Because I've been underestimated too. Just in different clothes." Laura frowned. "That doesn't make sense." "It will," he said. They stood there as the waves rolled in, and Laura felt something unfamiliar stirring beneath the exhaustion. Something like dignity. Like hope. She didn't know it yet, but that night wasn't just about exposure. It was the beginning of a reckoning. When the masks come off. The wind off the ocean cut through Laura's coat, but she didn't move away. The cold felt honest. It didn't pretend to be kind. It didn't smile and then strike. It just was. Daniel stood beside her, hands in his pockets, staring out at the dark water. The waves crashed steadily, indifferent to money, titles, or family opinions. Laura liked that about the ocean. It didn't care who you were supposed to be. "I should go back," she said suddenly, though she didn't turn toward the car. "I still live there. Above the garage. I can't just disappear." Daniel nodded slowly. "I'll take you." The drive back felt different from the first. Quieter but not empty. Laura watched the road this time instead of the window, grounding herself in something real. When they pulled into the driveway, the house was still glowing. Lights blazing, curtains open, silhouettes moving inside. Christmas music drifted faintly through the glass. Daniel turned off the engine. "Do you want me to walk you in?" Laura shook her head. "No. You've done enough." He hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out the folded bill. He held it out to her. She stared at it. "You don't have to." "I know," he said. "But I don't want this between us." She took it, fingers brushing his. The contact lingered longer than necessary. "Thank you," she said. "For seeing me." He met her eyes. "Anytime." Laura stepped out of the car and watched him drive away before turning toward the garage. Her steps felt heavier now but steadier. She climbed the narrow staircase to the small room she shared with her son, unlocked the door and leaned against it once inside. The silence pressed in. She sat on the edge of the bed and let the night replay itself. The laughter. The questions. The sudden reversal. The way approval had been handed out like candy once money entered the room. She wondered how many times she'd been dismissed without realizing it. How many times kindness had been withheld because she didn't look like someone worth investing in. Her phone buzzed. A text from Aunt Evelyn. "We need to talk. You embarrassed everyone tonight." Laura stared at the screen, then set the phone face down. For the first time, she didn't feel the urge to explain herself. The next morning came too early. Laura picked up Noah from the sleepover just after 8. He ran to her, backpack bouncing, face bright. "Mom? We stayed up late and watched movies." She smiled, hugging him tight. "Sounds perfect." As they drove back, Noah chatted nonstop. Laura listened, grateful for the normalcy, for the way his world was still simple. At the house, Aunt Evelyn was waiting. She stood at the kitchen counter, arms crossed, lips pressed thin. "We need to set some boundaries," she said before Laura could speak. Laura set Noah's bag down gently. "Noah, why don't you go upstairs and get changed?" He hesitated, sensing tension. Then nodded and disappeared up the stairs. Aunt Evelyn exhaled sharply. "You blindsided us." "I didn't plan it," Laura said evenly. "You should have told us who he was." Laura met her gaze. "What? Would it have changed how you spoke to me?" Aunt Evelyn opened her mouth, then closed it. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" Silence stretched between them. "We were worried about you," her aunt said finally. "About your future." Laura nodded. "I've noticed." Aunt Evelyn's voice softened. "People talk. They judge." "Yes," Laura said. "They do." The implication hung heavy in the air. "I think it's best if you start looking for other arrangements," Aunt Evelyn said. "Things have become complicated." Laura felt the sting, but it didn't knock the air from her lungs like it once would have. "I understand." That night, after Noah fell asleep, Laura sat at the small desk by the window and updated her resume. She applied to jobs she'd convinced herself she wasn't qualified for. She wrote cover letters with shaking hands and quiet determination. She didn't tell anyone. 2 days later, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Laura, Daniel's voice said when she did. I hope this isn't strange. No, she said quickly. It's nice. I wanted to check on you. She hesitated, then told him the truth. About the conversation. About needing to move. About the fear she hadn't let herself feel yet. Daniel listened without interrupting. I might be able to help, he said carefully. Laura stiffened. I don't want charity. I'm not offering charity, he replied. I'm offering an opportunity. She waited. There's an administrative position opening at one of our regional offices, he said. Good pay. Benefits. Flexible hours. Laura laughed softly. You don't even know my qualifications. I know enough, he said. And I read people well. She looked around the room, the peeling paint, the borrowed furniture, the life held together by effort and hope. I'll think about it, she said. Take your time. They hung up, and Laura stared at the phone long after the screen went dark. She didn't sleep much that night. 3 weeks later, Laura sat in a clean, bright office building, resume in her lap. She wore her best blouse and a borrowed blazer. Her hands trembled as she waited. The interviewer smiled warmly. Asked thoughtful questions. Listen. At the end she said, you have excellent instincts. We'd like to move forward. Laura walked out into the sunlight feeling like the ground beneath her had shifted. That evening she signed a lease for a small apartment across town. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. When she told Noah, he grinned. Do I get my own room? Yes, she said laughing. You do. He threw his arms around her. You did it, Mom. She hugged him back, eyes burning. She hadn't done it alone, but she'd done it honestly. A week later, Laura ran into her family at a holiday charity event. Aunt Evelyn spotted her first, eyes widening when she saw Laura's confident stride, her tailored coat, her calm smile. Laura, she said, startled. I didn't know you'd be here. I was invited, Laura replied. Daniel appeared at her side moments later, greeting her warmly. The room noticed. Whispers followed. Laura felt them, but they didn't weigh her down anymore. Because this time she wasn't standing there to prove anything. She was standing there because she belonged. When respect arrives too late. The charity gala glittered with the kind of effort money could buy. Crystal glasses, live string music, carefully curated smiles. Laura moved through the room with a calm she hadn't possessed months ago, her hand resting lightly at her side, her posture relaxed but sure. She wasn't pretending anymore. That alone changed everything. Daniel stayed close, not possessively, just present. The way he always was. They spoke to donors, volunteers, organizers. Laura listened more than she talked, asked thoughtful questions, and thanked people sincerely. She didn't mention her job unless asked. She didn't mention her past at all. But her family watched. Aunt Evelyn hovered near the bar, pretending not to stare. Rebecca whispered behind her hand. Uncle Martin's laughter came a little too loudly whenever Daniel passed. Eventually, inevitability won. Laura, Aunt Evelyn said, approaching with a tight smile. You look wonderful. Thank you, Laura replied. We didn't realize you were involved with this organization. I am now, Laura said simply. Daniel excused himself to take a call, leaving them momentarily alone. Aunt Evelyn leaned in. You know, after Christmas I thought a lot about what happened. Laura waited. We may have been too harsh, her aunt said. We just wanted what was best for you. Laura nodded slowly. I know. But her voice carried something new, distance. We were worried, Aunt Evelyn continued. And then everything happened so fast. Daniel. The job. The move. Yes, Laura said. It did. Rebecca joined them, eyes flicking toward the door where Daniel had disappeared. You could have told us, she said. About him. About everything. Laura smiled faintly. I didn't know I had to earn kindness. Rebecca flushed. Before either could respond, Daniel returned. Everything okay? He asked. Yes, Laura said. We were just catching up. Daniel nodded, polite but unreadable. He placed a hand lightly at the small of her back as they turned away. The gesture was small, but intentional. The room noticed. 2 weeks later, Laura started her new role officially. The office buzzed with activity, but it wasn't overwhelming. She had a desk. A schedule that let her pick Noah up from school. Health insurance. Paid time off. Stability. Her first paycheck felt unreal in her hands. She paid bills early. Bought groceries without calculating each item. Ordered Noah new shoes without guilt. One evening, after Noah fell asleep, Laura sat on the couch scrolling through old photos on her phone. Christmases passed. Tight smiles. Strained poses. She paused on a photo from years ago, herself, younger, hopeful, standing beside her ex-husband before everything fell apart. She deleted it. Then she put the phone down and cried. Not from sadness, but release. Daniel didn't push. He never framed his help as rescue. He checked in. He listened. Sometimes they had dinner. Sometimes they didn't talk for days. One night, over takeout in Laura's new apartment, he said, "You know you don't owe me anything." "I know," she said. "That's why this matters." He smiled. They talked about Noah. About Sophie. About expectations placed on people based on what they had or didn't have. Daniel told her about growing up with nothing, about learning early that respect often followed wealth, not character. "I hid who I was that night on purpose," he admitted. "I wanted to see how they'd treat you. And me." Laura looked at him. "Did it hurt?" "Yes," he said honestly. "But not as much as it should have." She understood what he meant. The call came unexpectedly. Aunt Evelyn was selling the house. She asked Laura to come by. Laura hesitated, then agreed. The garage room was empty when she arrived. Boxes stacked. Dust in the corners. It looked smaller than she remembered. Aunt Evelyn stood in the doorway, suddenly unsure. "I wanted to apologize," she said. "Properly." Laura studied her face. The lines. The pride. The fear of being left behind. "I'm listening," Laura said. "I judged you," her aunt said quietly. "I thought struggle meant failure. I was wrong." Laura breathed in. Then out. "I don't need an apology to move forward," she said. "But I accept it." Aunt Evelyn nodded, eyes wet. "I hope one day you'll forgive me." "Maybe," Laura said. "But things will be different." As she walked away, Laura felt no triumph. No revenge. Just clarity. At home that night, Noah asked, "Are we rich now?" Laura laughed, pulling him close. "No, buddy. We're okay." He smiled. "Okay is good." She kissed his hair, realizing how true that was. Later, Daniel stood on her balcony, city lights stretching before them. "You changed everything yourself," he said. Laura shook her head. "You opened a door." She looked at him. "But I walked through it." The kind of wealth that can't be taken away. Spring arrived quietly, without ceremony. The cold loosened its grip, and the city softened around the edges. Laura noticed the change in small ways. The way Noah no longer needed his heavy coat for school, the way sunlight reached her apartment earlier each morning, the way her chest felt lighter when she woke up. Life wasn't perfect, but it was stable. And for Laura that was everything. She had settled into her role at the office with confidence that still surprised her. She wasn't the loudest voice in the room, but people listened when she spoke. Her supervisors trusted her judgment. Her co-workers respected her work ethic. Respect, she learned, didn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it arrived quietly and stayed. One afternoon, Laura was called into a conference room unexpectedly. She felt the old fear rise for a moment. What if I messed up? What if I don't belong here after all? But she pushed it down and walked in with steady steps. Daniel was there, along with 2 senior executives. Laura stopped short. "Is everything okay?" Daniel smiled. "More than okay." One of the executives gestured for her to sit. "We've been reviewing your performance," she said. "Your organizational systems have already improved efficiency in 3 departments." Laura blinked. "I was just doing my job." "That's exactly why we noticed," the executive replied. "We'd like to offer you a permanent leadership role." The words landed slowly. Leadership. Laura felt her breath catch. She thought of the grocery store, the cleaning shifts, the garage room, the questions that had tried to reduce her life to failure. "I'd be honored," she said. When the meeting ended, Daniel waited until they were alone. "I didn't influence that decision," he said gently. "I stepped back." Laura nodded. She believed him. That mattered more than the promotion. The invitation arrived 2 weeks later. A family gathering. Easter dinner. Aunt Evelyn's sister's house. Laura stared at the message on her phone for a long time before responding. Noah peeked over her shoulder. "What is it?" "Family dinner," she said. He made a face. "Do we have to go?" Laura smiled sadly. "No, we don't." She typed a polite decline. Then she set the phone down and felt something close to freedom. Instead, Laura hosted a small dinner in her own apartment. Noah helped set the table. Daniel brought dessert. Sophie came too, shy at first but warm once she started talking about school. The table wasn't large. The chairs didn't match. But the laughter was real. As they ate, Laura watched the children talk animatedly, watched Daniel listen with quiet pride, and felt something settle into place inside her. This was family. Chosen. Built. Earned. After dinner, Daniel helped wash dishes while Laura dried. The children sprawled on the living room floor, coloring and arguing gently over crayons. Daniel spoke without looking up. I want to be clear about something. Laura glanced at him. I didn't step into your life to fix it, he said. I stepped in because I respected you. Her throat tightened. I know, she said. He turned to face her. And I'd like to stay. Not as a favor. Not as a role. She met his gaze, steady and sure. I'd like that. They didn't rush it. They didn't need to. They had learned the value of patience. Months later, Laura received a message from Rebecca. I was unfair to you. I see that now. Laura read it once. Then replied, I hope you find what you're looking for. She didn't explain. She didn't defend. She didn't reopen old wounds. Some lessons weren't hers to teach. One evening as Laura tucked Noah into bed, he asked, Mom, were you sad before? She paused. Sometimes. He nodded thoughtfully. You're not sad now. She smiled, brushing his hair back. No, I'm not. Is it because of Daniel? Laura considered the question. It's because I learned I'm enough. Even without anyone. Noah smiled sleepily. Good. She kissed his forehead and turned off the light. On the balcony later that night, Laura stood beside Daniel, city lights glowing below. You know, she said softly, I paid $50 for you to pretend to care. Daniel smiled. Worst business decision I ever made. She laughed, leaning into him. They stood there in comfortable silence, the kind that comes only when nothing needs to be proven. Because the greatest karma wasn't wealth revealed or judgment reversed. It was dignity reclaimed.